Currently, the web page we've built is static. The input and button elements don't do anything when you interact with them. So the next step is to get our HTML and JavaScript talking to each other, which we can do by adding event listeners. One way to do this is by adding attributes to the HTML elements we want to make interactive. Different elements support different event listeners and can range from mouse and keyboard interactions to resizing the browser and much more. In our case, we want to listen for when the button element is clicked, for which we need the onClick event listener. The value for the attribute should be configured to execute a JavaScript function, which is done with the same syntax we would use if we were calling the function in JavaScript. The goal here is to extract the values from the two input boxes, use them as parameters in our existing calculateTotal function, and present the resulting value back to the user. So how do we get those input values? JavaScript provides access to what's known as the Document Object Model, or DOM for short, which provides access to an object-oriented version of our HTML. To access it, we can use the document keyword, which exposes various methods for interacting with the page, allowing us to create new elements programmatically, remove unwanted elements, or change the properties or content of existing elements. The easiest and fastest way to reference an element is by using the getElementById function, which exists as a property on the document. For reference, functions that exist as properties on an object or variable are referred to as methods. By adding an ID attribute to both of the input elements, we can use the getElementById method to get a reference to them in the JavaScript. The result of this exposes all of the properties that belong to that particular element, including any attributes or classes and even its inner HTML. We'll use the value property to get their current values and subsequently use them as parameters for the calculateTotal function. And now that we have the total amount, we need to somehow present it back to the user. As well as being able to read values and properties back from the HTML, we can also update them and change the inner HTML of elements. First, let's add a div element to the HTML and give it an ID. This is where we'll put the result of the calculation. Then, using the same method as before, we'll get a reference to that element and assign a value to the inner HTML property. And now it's your turn to start working with event listeners and the DOM. You can stay up to date with all of our content by subscribing to our YouTube channel or following us on social media. If you'd like a more interactive learning experience, then head over to webzy.academy, where you'll find our full set of training courses complete with hands-on activities and much more.